My name is Samantha Collins, 35 years old, and I never thought the people I trusted most would be the ones to gut me. My husband and my best friend. When I found out they were betraying me behind my back, I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I documented every filthy word, every secret, every lie. And when the time was right, I sent the screenshots straight to his boss. And her husband. What happened next? They never even imagined in their darkest nightmares. Before we dive in, tell me where you're watching from, and don't forget to hit subscribe and the like button. I stared at the glowing screen, my hand hovering over the mouse like it was a trigger. One click, that was all it would take. A single click, and everything they had built, the lies, the secrecy, the smug little world they thought I couldn't see, would come crashing down. The screenshots were lined up in neat folders on my desktop, each one labeled with precision. His name, her name, dates, times, threads of messages that read like love letters written in acid. Every smirk, every excuse, every late night at work was right there in black and white. I had spent weeks collecting them, making sure nothing could be twisted or denied. Proof that my husband, David Collins, and my best friend, Rachel Hayes, had been screwing each other behind my back. And now, proof that I was about to screw them both in return. The cursor blinked inside the email window, taunting me. My husband's boss's address filled the to line. Rachel's husband's number was cued on my phone, the screenshots attached and waiting. I could almost hear the detonation, like a bomb ticking down to zero. When I pressed send, their lives would ignite in flames. But I didn't press it right away. No, that would have been too easy. I wanted to savor this moment. The silence before the storm. The inhale before the scream. I leaned back in my chair, my eyes darting between the two devices in front of me. The laptop where David's boss would soon receive the filthiest evidence of corporate betrayal he'd ever seen, and my phone, where Rachel's husband would finally know what his sweet, loyal wife whispered into another man's bed. My pulse was steady, not racing, not frantic, cold, calculated, because this wasn't a crime of passion, this was justice. I had pictured this scene for weeks. The way David's smug grin would vanish when his boss, the man he was desperate to impress, saw him for what he really was. A lying, cheating bastard too stupid to cover his tracks. The way Rachel's face would drain of color when her husband confronted her, screenshots flashing on his phone while their kids sat at the dinner table. I wanted their humiliation to be cinematic. I wanted it to be public. My fingers brushed the mouse. I thought about all the nights I had sat in this very room, waiting for David to come home, about every lie Rachel fed me with that syrupy voice. Don't worry, Sam, he's lucky to have you. How I trusted her. How I let her into my home. Let her hug me while she smelled like his cologne. And now, they were about to choke on their own arrogance. The email subject line was simple. Thought you should see this. No explanation, no warning, just the knife sliding under the ribs. I hovered over send. A sound outside my office window made me pause. A car pulling into the driveway, headlights sweeping across the blinds. My husband, home early. Perfect. The thrill twisted inside me. He would walk in any second, throw his keys on the counter, kiss me on the cheek like the dutiful husband he pretended to be. And he'd have no idea that while he was pouring himself a drink, his career was already dying. I didn't move. I let the sound of the door opening, the shuffle of his shoes, the mutter of his voice on the phone, sink into the moment. My heart didn't flinch. If anything, I felt steadier. This was exactly how it needed to happen. Him under my roof, breathing the same air as his world collapsed. He called out, "Sam, you up?" I didn't answer. My finger hovered, the cursor still trembling over the button. My phone buzzed once, Rachel's name lighting up the screen. I almost laughed. She was texting him right now. I didn't need to read it. I already knew the rhythm of their little exchanges. the pathetic code words they thought made them clever. She was probably writing something dirty, something she'd never dare say out loud if I were in the room. And in less than a minute, her husband would read every single one of them. David stepped into the doorway, smiling faintly. That same smile he always wore when he thought he was in control. "What are you still doing up?" he asked. My eyes didn't leave the screen. "Working." It wasn't a lie. He chuckled, loosened his tie, walked toward the kitchen. His phone buzzed. He glanced at it, smirked. He thought he was slick, thumbing out a quick reply while I sat less than 20 feet away. I clenched the mouse tighter. One click. One. I imagined the chain reaction. His boss opening his email in the middle of a strategy meeting. Rachel's husband glancing at his phone over a dinner conversation. The silence that would fall. The way their throats would close. The way the lies would shatter in real time. I wanted to hear it. To feel it echo. David poured himself a drink, called out, "Want anything?" I didn't answer. My finger twitched. Send. The email disappeared, off into cyberspace like a bullet leaving the chamber. I grabbed my phone, attached the files, and pressed send again. This time, to Rachel's husband. Done. I sat back in my chair, exhaling slowly, my pulse still steady, my breathing calm. In the kitchen, David sipped his whiskey, oblivious. On the other side of town, Rachel leaned across the table from her husband, smiling her rehearsed smile. Both of them seconds away from impact. And I thought to myself, they'll never see this coming. Before everything rotted, my life looked enviable from the outside. A neat 2-story house in Dallas with white trim and a swing on the porch. A husband who wore crisp suits every morning, kissed me on the cheek, and promised he'd call before bed. And Rachel, my best friend since college, who lived 10 minutes away and filled the spaces David didn't. People told me I was lucky. Sometimes I believed them. My mornings were predictable in a comforting way. Coffee brewing at 6, the smell filling the kitchen as the sun bled orange through the blinds. David would stumble in, tie draped around his neck, scrolling through emails before his first sip. "You should wait until you're actually at the office," I'd tease. He'd smile, distracted. "Deadlines don't care where I am." That was David. Always chasing the next rung, a man with ambition stitched into his bones. I admired it once. His drive, his discipline. I thought it meant security. For us. Rachel would stop by a few mornings each week, sometimes with muffins, sometimes just with her chatter. She had this way of blowing into a room like she owned the air. Loud laugh, quick wit, always a story about some neighbor or client that made me shake my head. "You and David are goals," she told me once, peeling the wrapper off a blueberry muffin. "Seriously, Sam, the way he looks at you? Most women would kill for that." I smiled, half flattered, half embarrassed. David glanced up from his phone long enough to wink at me. Back then, I thought it was love. Our weekends were carved out like rituals. Saturday grocery runs, Sunday church, dinner with Rachel and her husband, Mark, at least twice a month. The four of us had a rhythm. Wine, laughter, the kind of conversations that make you think friendships like this will last forever. I remember one evening, Rachel poured herself another glass, leaned back in her chair and said, "If I ever get in trouble, Sam's the first one I'd call. She's the most loyal person I know." David reached across the table, squeezed my hand. True. She's got a heart too good for her own good. I blushed, not realizing he meant it as foreshadowing, not realizing Rachel was watching him just a second too long. Dreams? Oh, I had plenty. I wanted a family. I wanted a baby so badly it hurt to admit out loud. David always had a reason to delay. Promotions, projects, timing. "Let's get the house paid down first," he'd say. Or, "Next year, when things are calmer." Rachel knew. She was the one I cried to after another negative test. She hugged me tight, promised it would happen, told me not to lose faith. Looking back, I wonder if she ever laughed at me when she drove home. But even then, there were cracks. Subtle things I brushed off. The late nights. At first, they made sense. David's job in finance was demanding. If his boss needed him to stay until midnight, he stayed. That was who he was. But sometimes he'd come home smelling faintly of perfume. Not Rachel's, or at least I didn't think so then. Something floral, something sweet. I asked once jokingly, "New secretary wearing too much Chanel?" He chuckled, kissed the top of my head. "You notice everything." I told myself it was nothing. Rachel, too, had her quirks. She could be a little possessive, always asking when David would be home, what he was working on, if he seemed stressed. I thought she cared about me, about us. Once, when David walked into the room shirtless after mowing the lawn, I caught her eyes linger a beat too long. She laughed it off when she saw me watching. "Relax, Sam. He's handsome, that's all." I laughed too. Because what else could I do? There were small, sharp moments that stuck in my throat even then. Like the night I made David's favorite dinner, pot roast, garlic mashed potatoes, and Rachel dropped by unannounced. She slid into his seat before he even sat down, spooned herself potatoes and said, "Don't mind me, I'm starving." David didn't blink. He poured her a glass of wine, sat across from us instead. It stung, but I swallowed it. Told myself it was harmless. Told myself best friends didn't cross lines. Mark, her husband, was a good man. Solid, dependable, the kind of guy who fixed his own gutters and brought flowers home, just because. He adored Rachel in a way that was almost old-fashioned. Sometimes I caught myself envying her, not because of Mark, but because she had someone who loved her without condition, without excuses. "David works hard because he loves you," she'd remind me when I complained about his hours. I believed her, because I wanted to. The ordinary world is always ordinary until the day it isn't. The red flag moment came on a Thursday night. David had another late meeting. I was curled up on the couch, half asleep, when my phone buzzed. A text from Rachel. "Can I borrow your red dress? The one you wore to the gala last year?" I frowned, typed back, "Sure, come by tomorrow." She replied almost instantly, "No rush, I'll grab it tonight. I'm nearby anyway." It was nearly 11. Something tightened in my chest. When she arrived, she looked flushed, hair slightly mussed, eyes too bright. She hugged me like nothing was strange, walked straight to my closet, pulled the dress off the hanger. "Big night?" I asked, half joking. She grinned. "Something like that." I didn't press. I told myself it was just Rachel being Rachel. But when David slipped into bed at 2 a.m., smelling faintly of perfume, the same perfume Rachel wore that night, something inside me stirred awake. I didn't know it then, but that was the start of the end. The night of the red dress should have been enough. I should have trusted my instincts. The tightening in my chest when Rachel slipped out of my house with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. But denial is a powerful drug. I wanted to believe she was still my friend. I wanted to believe David was still my husband. Then the cracks widened. The first slip came from technology. David and I shared an iCloud account. He insisted on it years ago, claiming it was easier for bills and calendars. I never questioned it. But one Tuesday afternoon, while folding laundry, my iPad lit up with a message that wasn't meant for me. It was from Rachel. "Can't stop thinking about last night. You make me feel alive in ways Mark never has." My stomach lurched. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. I stared at the screen, willing the name to change, for the universe to rewrite itself. But the next bubble appeared, David's reply. "Careful. Don't let Sam see. She's too trusting for her own good." I dropped the shirt in my hands. My legs gave out, and I sat there on the floor, laundry spilling around me. I reread it 3 times. Alive. Too trusting. My name reduced to a punchline. The rage came slow at first, crawling under my skin. I wanted to throw the iPad across the room, smash it into shards. But I didn't. I forced myself to breathe. If I destroyed it, the proof would vanish. So I took a screenshot, the first of many. Once the seal broke, the evidence poured in. I became an investigator in my own home. I learned the rhythms of their messages, the times they were most reckless. Late nights, early mornings. Their words dripped with arrogance, as if the thrill came not only from touching each other, but from spitting in the face of my trust. Rachel. I told her I had to work late too. She actually wished me luck, poor thing. David. She has no clue. Sometimes I think she's happier not knowing. Every sentence was a knife twisting deeper. They joked about me. They called me the saint. Rachel even used my dream against me once. She still thinks you'll give her a baby. God, she's so naive. David replied with a laughing emoji. I nearly vomited. That was the night something inside me hardened. The grief was still there, a raw, open wound, but it began to calcify into something sharper. One evening, I pretended to be asleep when David came home. He slipped into bed quietly, his phone buzzing in his hand. I cracked my eyes open just enough to see the glow of the screen. Rachel. Wish you were still here. Mark's snoring already. David typed back. Next time we'll take the dress off slower. The red dress. My dress. I closed my eyes before tears could give me away. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't drunken stupidity or a one-time lapse. They were calculating, deliberate, laughing at me in real time. The final blow came on a Sunday. Rachel and Mark came over for dinner. I made pasta, garlic bread, salad. We sat at the table like nothing was wrong. David and Rachel shared glances I might have missed before. Tiny sparks disguised as casual. Mark was cheerful, oblivious, pouring wine for everyone. At one point, David's phone buzzed on the counter. He didn't move to grab it, but Rachel did. She glanced at the screen, then quickly turned it face down. Her cheeks flushed. My chest burned. When I cleared the dishes, I slipped the phone into my apron pocket. In the bathroom, I locked the door and scrolled. Dozens of messages. Half-naked pictures. Plans for hotel rooms. Inside jokes about me. Sam will never catch on. She thinks loyalty is everyone's default. She trusts us both too much. It makes it easy. That was it. Not just betrayal, mockery. They weren't ashamed. They were proud. They were using my love as cover. I saved everything, forwarded it to myself, locked it away in a folder labeled House Budget. Then I flushed the toilet, washed my hands, and went back to the table, smiling. That night, after everyone left, I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at David as he brushed his teeth. He hummed like a man with no secrets, spit into the sink, kissed my cheek before climbing under the covers. Love you, Sam, he murmured, half asleep already. I lay awake beside him, heart pounding, my eyes fixed on the ceiling. Love me? No. Use me. Mock me. Betray me. The grief was suffocating at first. I spent hours in the shower, letting the water scald my skin, trying to burn away the images of them together. But grief morphed into something else. Each time I reread their words, a new emotion rose like steel in my veins. They thought I was too trusting, too soft. They had mistaken loyalty for weakness. And weakness was something I would never allow again. The screenshots piled higher, each one another nail in their coffins. But I didn't rush. Not yet. I realized something as I stared at the folders filling my desktop. This wasn't about catching them. It was about ending them. And the thought came clear, sharp, undeniable. If they built their affair on secrecy, then I would destroy them with exposure. The morning after I uncovered everything, I expected to feel broken. I thought I'd wake up with swollen eyes, an empty chest, the kind of hollow that makes you want to disappear. But when I opened my eyes, staring at David's back as he dressed for work, what I felt wasn't grief. It was clarity. I lay still, pretending to be half asleep, while he adjusted his tie and hummed under his breath. My husband, the man who had mocked me with my best friend hours earlier, moved around the room like nothing was wrong, like I was still his safe little cover story. Big meeting today? I asked, my voice groggy. He turned, smiling faintly. Yeah, could change everything for me if it goes well. I forced a sleepy smile, let him kiss my forehead, watched him walk out the door. His confidence was a gift, because while he thought he was walking toward his future, I knew he was walking toward the edge of a cliff. That day, I tested myself. Could I play the role? Could I smile when Rachel called, asking if I wanted to grab coffee? Could I laugh at her jokes, nod at her stories, pretend my stomach didn't twist with every word? I could. I met her at the cafe near her office, the one with white brick walls and overpriced lattes. She wore the red dress, my red dress, and twirled in front of me like a teenager. "Mark complimented me twice this morning," she said, sipping her drink. "Can you believe that? Men usually stop noticing after marriage." I smiled, though my nails dug into my palm beneath the table. "You've always had that effect," she winked. "Guess I still got it." I held her gaze, steady, unflinching. She didn't see it. She didn't see that I was studying her every movement, every lie. To Rachel, I was still the trusting friend, the loyal one she could confide in. She thought she owned the board, and I let her. David underestimated me even more. That evening, he came home late, loosened his tie, and kissed me like a man who believed his secret was safe. "You should have seen me today," he said, pouring a drink. "Boss was hanging on every word. I think I'm in line for that promotion." "That's great, David." I kept my tone warm, encouraging. He sat across from me, glass in hand. "And Sam, I know I've been busy, but it's for us, for our future. You trust me, right?" I nodded. "Of course." Inside, I memorized the line. He was setting himself up without realizing it. That trust he was so sure I still had? It would be the weapon I'd use to gut him. The turning point came a few nights later. David was in the shower. His phone buzzed on the counter. I didn't need to check anymore, but I did. Rachel had sent him a picture. Nothing explicit, but enough. She'd captioned it, "Think Sam suspects?" David replied almost instantly, "Not a chance. She's loyal to a fault. She'll never see it coming." I stared at the words until steam from the bathroom fogged the mirror. Loyal to a fault. That's when the decision crystallized. They thought I would cry. They thought I would beg. They thought I'd either ignore it or walk away quietly, giving them the satisfaction of winning. No. They had underestimated the wrong woman. I wasn't going to confront them. I wasn't going to scream or plead for answers. That would have given them power. And I had already decided. Power belonged to me. From that night forward, I became two people. To them, I was still Samantha, the doting wife, the loyal friend. I cooked dinners, laughed at their jokes, shared wine on Friday nights. Rachel told me about her weekend plans with a sly smile, and I pretended not to notice the flicker in David's eyes when she spoke. But privately, I was something else. Cold, observant, patient. Every glance, every slip of the tongue, every schedule overlap. I logged it all. I built a map in my mind of their movements, their carelessness. Proof stacked higher each day, not because I needed more to believe it, but because I wanted to decide exactly how I'd dismantle them. The first taste of power came when Rachel left her phone on my counter while using the bathroom. I picked it up, unlocked with the code I'd seen her enter 1,000 times, and sent myself everything I could find in 60 seconds. Screenshots, photos, even a calendar reminder labeled Lunch with D. When she came back, she laughed nervously. "Don't let me forget my phone everywhere. Mark would kill me." I smiled sweetly. "Don't worry. You're safe with me." She believed me. The more they trusted me, the colder I became. Their arrogance was fuel. They thought I was blind. They thought I was weak. And every time they underestimated me, my decision grew stronger. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It wasn't even about justice. It was about art. Their betrayal was sloppy. My revenge would be meticulous. One evening, David kissed my cheek before leaving for a late-night meeting. Rachel texted me 15 minutes later. "Movie night soon?" I replied, "Definitely. I'll bring the wine." Then I sat at my computer, organizing files, lining up the evidence like ammunition. Folders labeled by date, cross-referenced with his work calendar, backed up on a drive he didn't know existed. I stared at the screen, at the blinking cursor waiting for me to write the first draft of their downfall, and I thought, the game has already started. They just don't know they're playing. The decision was made. But decisions are nothing without execution. I didn't want rage to guide me. Rage is sloppy. Rage gets caught. I wanted precision. A betrayal as deliberate as theirs deserved a downfall carved with care. So I began to plan. The first step was evidence management. I treated it like a case file. Screenshots weren't enough. Not if I wanted their destruction to be undeniable. I created duplicates, hidden in places David and Rachel would never think to look. A USB drive tucked inside a box of tampons under the sink. Another saved in cloud storage under the alias Martha Green. I even emailed a set to myself with the subject line, insurance policy. Every time I clicked save, I felt steadier, stronger. The second step was timing. David's promotion announcement was weeks away. His boss, Michael Turner, was a man who valued image above all else. Clean records, respectable families, employees who looked untouchable. If David was exposed before that promotion, he'd be passed over, maybe even fired. If he was exposed after, he'd drag the company's credibility down with him. Either way, I held the detonator. Rachel's anniversary was around the same time. Mark had been planning a trip, dropping hints about a surprise weekend getaway. If Rachel's mask slipped before then, the trip would be ruined. If it slipped during, the humiliation would cut deeper. I wasn't just going to ruin one life, I was going to ruin two, simultaneously. But collecting wasn't without risk. One night, while David showered, I pulled his phone from the counter to check the latest messages. He came out earlier than usual, towel slung around his waist. My heart froze as he spotted me standing there. "Looking for something?" he asked. I forced a smile, held up the phone. "Yeah, wanted to order takeout. Mine was charging." He chuckled, kissed my temple, and walked past. "Guess I should start using a lock code, huh?" I laughed along. Inside, my hands were shaking. One wrong move, and the whole operation would have collapsed. Rachel was careless, too. She left her purse open one afternoon while we were out shopping. I spotted a hotel keycard tucked inside, branded with the same chain David claimed to use for business meetings. I snapped a photo when she went to the fitting room. Later, I cross-referenced it with his calendar. Same day, same time. My pulse raced, not from heartbreak, but from the thrill of tightening the net. I started practicing small lies, rehearsing them until they felt like truth. When David asked why I seemed distracted, I smiled. "Just tired. Work's been heavy." When Rachel teased me about being quiet, I laughed. "Too much caffeine. I'm buzzing inside." They believed me. They always believed me. And the more they believed, the more reckless they became. The plan itself sharpened around 3 pillars: proof, timing, delivery. Proof I already had. Timing I was perfecting. Delivery would be the masterpiece. David's boss needed corporate humiliation, not rumors, not whispers, documents, screenshots that showed his golden employee risking the firm's name with scandal. Rachel's husband needed emotional devastation. He needed to see in his own hands what she'd been saying in another man's arms. And the best part? Both exposures could happen at once. But planning requires patience. And patience is its own kind of weapon. One Saturday night, the 4 of us had dinner again. Mark grilled steaks. Rachel brought wine. David laughed too loud at one of her jokes. My face ached from holding the mask in place. Halfway through, Rachel's phone buzzed on the counter. I noticed the way David's eyes flicked toward it, the way her lips twitched as she glanced back at him. Mark didn't notice. But I did. I reached for my glass, smiling, as if nothing were happening. All the while, I imagined the moment this table would never look the same again. Close calls became tests of discipline. Another night, Rachel texted me by mistake. The message was meant for David. Can't wait for tomorrow. Wear that blue shirt I love. My chest tightened. I typed back quickly. Think you sent this to the wrong person. Seconds later. Oh my God, I meant it for Mark. Ignore me. I played dumb, replied with a laughing emoji. She bought it. But I knew better. The mask was cracking. Hers, not mine. The stakes rose with each day. I wasn't just playing with secrets. I was juggling futures. If I acted too soon, they might recover. Call it a misunderstanding. Spin it as gossip. If I acted too late, someone else might stumble on the truth. And I couldn't let anyone else control the story. So I refined the plan until it gleamed. The final detail came one night when David left his laptop open. He was careless after a few drinks. And I slipped into his email drafts. There, unsent but saved, was a note from Rachel. Sometimes I think about what it'll be like when we don't have to hide anymore. When Sam finally leaves, and Mark finds someone better. It wasn't just lust. It was a future. A life built on my ashes. My fingers trembled as I copied the draft. This was the nail in the coffin. Not only betrayal, but intent. They wanted to erase me. And that's when I realized my plan wasn't just ready. It was perfect. The files were sorted, the timelines aligned, the delivery system primed. David thought he was on the verge of a promotion. Rachel thought she was on the verge of freedom, but I knew the truth. They weren't standing at the start of their future. They were standing at the edge of their ruin, and I was the one who would push. The day of David's promotion meeting arrived like a stage set for my performance. The suit he chose was navy, pressed to perfection. The tie I'd given him last Christmas knotted tight at his throat. He kissed me before leaving, his lips brushing mine as if he still owned me. "You'll be proud," he said. I smiled. "I already am." He didn't notice the flash drive tucked inside my purse, or the phone in my pocket, primed to send every screenshot that would end him. Rachel, too, was preparing for her own curtain call. Mark had planned their anniversary dinner at a new downtown restaurant, reservations she'd bragged about to me. "He's finally stepping up his game," she'd laughed, twirling her hair. "Maybe he'll remember how lucky he is." The irony almost made me choke. I waited until the clock struck 6. David's meeting would be in full swing. Rachel and Mark would be clinking glasses at their table, both of them unsuspecting, both about to taste the poison they'd poured into my veins. I sat at my desk, opened my laptop, and dragged 2 folders onto 2 separate emails. 2, Michael Turner, subject line, "Thought you should see this." 2, Mark Hayes, subject line, "Your wife deserves an award." I hovered only for a moment, my pulse steady, my hand calm. Then I clicked send. The files shot out into cyberspace, neat little bullets aimed at 2 unsuspecting hearts. And then, I waited. The first explosion came from David's world. At 6:18, my phone buzzed with a message from him. "Emergency. Be home late." I pictured it. Michael Turner, standing at the head of the boardroom, clicking open the email in front of a table of executives. Screenshots filling the projector. Texts between David and Rachel, lewd and mocking, lighting up the screen like evidence in a trial. Michael's reputation was built on discipline, on family values he paraded to investors. And here was David, his golden boy, revealed as reckless, sloppy, a liability. I imagined the silence in that room, the sideways glances, the weight of judgment pressing down. David's voice cracking as he tried to explain. There would be no promotion. Not now. Not ever. The second explosion was more personal. At 6:41, Rachel's husband called me. His voice was jagged, broken. "Sam, I got the email. Please tell me this isn't real." "It's real," I said quietly. I heard him exhale, the sound of a man whose world had been gutted. In the background, Rachel's voice rose, desperate, frantic. "Mark, listen to me. They're fake. She's lying." But Mark had the screenshots, the dates, the hotel receipts, even a photo Rachel had sent of herself in my red dress, captioned with words she couldn't deny. The sound of glass shattering cut through the line. Then silence. "Thank you," Mark whispered, his voice flat, deadly calm. "For showing me the truth." He hung up. I almost felt pity. Almost. But pity was wasted on predators who mocked loyalty. By the time David returned home that night, the mask was gone. His tie was loosened, his face pale, his eyes wild. He slammed the door, threw his phone onto the counter, and turned on me. "What the hell did you do?" I tilted my head. "I don't know what you mean." "Don't play dumb, Sam," his voice cracked. "Turner showed the board. He showed everyone. I lost everything. Do you understand what you've done?" "Me?" I stepped closer, calm, steady. "You did this. Every word, every message, every lie. You just never thought anyone would hold the mirror up." His face twisted, caught between rage and disbelief. "You ruined me." I leaned in, whispering so close he could smell the steel in my tone. "No, David. You ruined yourself. I just made sure the right people saw it." The fallout with Rachel came even faster. She showed up on my doorstep the next morning, her hair wild, mascara streaked, hands trembling. "How could you?" she hissed. "You destroyed my marriage." I laughed, cold, sharp. "No, Rachel, you destroyed your marriage the second you touched my husband." She shook her head, desperate. "We didn't mean for it to happen." I cut her off with a smile that wasn't a smile at all. "Don't insult me. You meant every second. And now Mark knows exactly who you are." Her lip trembled. He left, packed a bag, took the kids. For a flicker of a moment, I saw the hollow in her eyes, the realization that she had lost everything. Then she spat on the ground, muttered something vile, and stormed away. I didn't stop her. But the revenge wasn't complete. Not yet. The shocking final blow came 3 days later, when the local gossip page picked up the story. An anonymous source, me, sent a carefully edited package of screenshots to a journalist hungry for scandal. Headline: Rising Executives Affair with Best Friend Exposed. Promotion Withdrawn Amid Scandal. The article spread like wildfire. David's photo appeared beside Rachel's, their words plastered for strangers to dissect. Clients withdrew from the firm. Mark filed for divorce. Rachel lost custody of her children in the interim. Her reputation burned to ash. David, once the star of his company, couldn't step into a room without whispers, without heads turning. The humiliation wasn't private anymore. It was permanent. That night, I sat on the porch swing, sipping wine, watching the sky fade to indigo. David sat inside, hunched over a drink, a shell of himself. Rachel's number flashed across his phone screen, but he didn't answer. The world they'd tried to build on my back had collapsed, brick by brick. I should have felt closure, relief, but what I felt was better. Power. The last move wasn't necessary, but it was irresistible. I sent one final screenshot, the unsent draft Rachel had written, the one about when Sam finally leaves and Mark finds someone better. I sent it directly to David. He read it in silence, his face draining of color. Then he hurled his phone against the wall. I rose from my chair, walked past him without a word, and whispered just loud enough for him to hear. Checkmate. Revenge has a strange silence to it. Not fireworks, not applause. Just the quiet satisfaction of knowing the people who mocked you are now choking on the ashes of their arrogance. The days after the explosion were eerily calm for me. For David and Rachel, they were hell. David was the first to crumble. His company put him on administrative leave while they investigated. That was polite corporate language for, "We're already looking for your replacement." His promotion was gone, his career prospects circling the drain. Colleagues stopped returning his calls. Friends who once admired his ambition now avoided his eye at the gym, whispered when he walked past. At home, he drank more, sat in silence, staring at the wall like if he waited long enough, the world would forget. But the internet doesn't forget. The article with his name in the headline had been shared too many times. Screenshotted, archived. Every time he tried to bury it, it resurfaced. He had wanted power. Now he was powerless. Rachel's ruin came faster. Mark filed for divorce within a week, his lawyer citing irreconcilable betrayal with documented proof. She begged him to reconsider, screamed at him in the driveway when he came to collect his things. He didn't flinch. Their children watched from the window, confusion etched into their little faces. When Rachel realized she wasn't just losing Mark, but custody, her desperation turned feral. She called me, voice ragged. "You don't get it, Sam," she sobbed. "I was lonely. Mark ignored me for years. David was there. You've destroyed me. You've destroyed everything." I let her cry. Let her blame me. Then I said evenly, "No, Rachel. You destroyed yourself the moment you touched what wasn't yours." And I hung up. The beauty of revenge is symmetry. They had laughed at me behind closed doors, so I made their humiliation public. They had built their affair on secrecy, so I tore their secrets into the light. But there was one more layer, one final twist I'd been saving. It came on a Friday afternoon. David was still living in the house, though barely functioning. He sat at the table, half asleep over a glass of whiskey, when a knock rattled the front door. I opened it to find Rachel, pale, trembling, mascara smudged. "Sam," she whispered, glancing past me. "I need to see him." I stepped aside, curious. She brushed past, heels clicking on the tile, and stormed into the kitchen. David looked up, eyes red. "What the hell are you doing here?" "We need to talk," she hissed. "Mark's gone. The kids. He won't even let me see them without a supervisor. You're all I have left." He laughed bitterly. "All you have left? Rachel, I lost everything because of you." "Because of me?" she snapped. "You were the one who got sloppy. You left your phone unlocked, your laptop open." "You think Turner would have ever seen those messages if you'd been careful?" The argument ignited, both of them spitting venom, years of arrogance collapsing into blame. I stood in the doorway, silent, watching them turn on each other like animals. It was better than I had imagined. And then, the twist. Rachel's voice rose, shrill with rage. "You told me she'd leave eventually. You promised we'd have a life together once Sam was out of the picture." David slammed his fist on the table. "I never promised you anything." The words hung in the air. Rachel froze. What?" "I was never going to leave her," David spat. "You were convenient, that's all." Her face twisted, horror melting into hatred. She lunged at him, nails out, screaming. He shoved her back. She stumbled, caught herself on the counter, and glared at him with the eyes of a woman who had just realized she'd been used twice. For a moment, silence stretched. Then she laughed, a broken, guttural sound. "You deserve each other," she whispered, but her eyes flicked to me. "And you, Sam. You think you've won, but you'll always be alone now. That's your punishment." She stormed out, the door slamming so hard the walls rattled. David looked at me, hollow. "Are you happy now?" I met his gaze, steady. "Not happy. Satisfied." He shook his head, muttering, "You've ruined everything." I leaned closer, my voice low, deliberate. "No, David. You ruined everything. I just lit the match." The final twist came later that night. My phone buzzed with a new email. The sender, Michael Turner. The subject, "Appreciate the heads up." Inside was one line, "David's finished here. Consider this debt repaid." Attached was something unexpected, a copy of David's termination letter, stamped and official. But there was more. A second attachment. A list of names. Rachel's, underlined. Apparently, Michael hadn't just been disgusted by David's recklessness. He had been using Rachel as a client reference for years. With her reputation now tainted, her business was collapsing too. One email, 2 careers destroyed. I sat back, staring at the screen. The revenge was complete. Thorough. Irreversible. David had no job. Rachel had no marriage, no children, no career. And me? I had silence. The kind of silence that tastes like victory. People think revenge leaves you empty. That once you burn everything down, all you're left with is smoke. But they're wrong. Revenge leaves you standing in the ashes with a smile, because you know the fire was yours to start, and theirs to suffer. I poured myself a glass of wine, sat on the porch, and watched the night settle over Dallas. Behind me, David sulked in silence. Across town, Rachel probably screamed into her empty house. And I thought, they took my trust. I took their lives. The balance was perfect. The next morning, Rachel's husband, Mark, texted me. I don't know how you stayed strong through this. You didn't deserve any of it. If you ever need someone to talk to, I'm here. I smiled, closed the message, and set the phone aside. I didn't respond. Not yet. Because the best part of revenge is knowing there are still moves left to play. Thank you for watching until the very end. Stories like this remind us how betrayal cuts deepest when it comes from the people closest to us, and how justice, when delivered with precision, can change everything. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Have you ever witnessed betrayal this brutal, or felt the urge for revenge yourself? Share your experience in the comments below. And if this story struck a chord with you, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe so you never miss the next one. Your support means everything. Until next time.